Welcome to another episode of Dear Rach and Soph with me, your co-host Sophie Green, and my other co-host.
Rachel Johns. Hi, everyone.
That might have been incorrect. My other co-host. That sounded wrong as soon as it had left my
Sounds
mouth.
like you have a few co-hosts. It's okay. This is why we have editors to fix our stuff before they actually go out on the page.
Yeah, except you do have another co-host, Rach. You have Anthea.
I do. So I could call you my other co-host. Yes.
That's true, but I do not have another co-host, at least not for my country music podcast either. What am I going to ask people to do, Rach? That's right. I'm going to ask them to please like and subscribe to us on YouTube because that helps us find new audience members for this podcast. And of course, we would love to do that because that helps us tell more people about Australian
Fiction,
Australian artists, Australian writers. Yes, there we go.
Yeah. I was talking with I did an interview, well, not an interview, sort of a panel the other morning with Brooke Blurton and Melanie Sayed at the Sunshine Coast Hinterland Fiction Festival, and we all introduced ourselves, and Brooke went first, and she said she struggles with the idea of calling herself an author. And I said, oh, well, I still feel a struggle. Like when someone says to me, hi, what do you do for a living? And I say I'm an author, I feel like a complete fraud and also just feels weird. But then we started talking about the terms, and she said, I feel like I like the word storyteller better.
Right.
Like across platforms, whether it's her nonfiction and whether it's like nonfiction like memoir, or whether it's kids fiction or song or TV. And so we want to spread the word about Aussie storytellers.
Yes, and I should also say I tripped over what I was going to say because I have come directly from interviewing a musician. So I literally ended that.
You don't know whether in the music world or the book world. You don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Don't know which end is up. It's late on a Thursday night.
I feel like that as well, and I have not as much excuse as you. Although I had a lunch meeting with Anthea for our retreat, which is, anyone listening, I've got an online book club, and we have our in-person retreat next weekend, and so we had a lunch meeting and we're going all over that, and I'm almost finished my edit, so everything is going on, and yeah.
Well, at the time we are speaking, yes, we are just over a week out from your retreat. And so by the time this is aired, the retreat will have been and gone, and I'll have been there.
Hopefully it went all well, it went all fabulously.
I'm sure it would have.
You know what I've just done as I was waiting for you to come on?
What?
I've booked us a photo booth for Friday night.
Oh my God. Well, see, in years gone past, I would have said, oh my God, I'm not doing that. But now that I'm used to social media and will take a photo at the slightest provocation.
I expect you to do it.
Yes. They can be fun. I did one at a friend's birthday party and the photos were fantastic. So there you go.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So also in terms of you were saying you were feeling a bit like I was, but you hadn't been doing as much tonight. You have been doing a lot generally. In fact, you have been finishing writing The Lucky Sisters. I'm going to reiterate to our listeners that you've had 2 books out since you started writing The Lucky Sisters. You've also been touring. At the time we're speaking, you've just come back from the Sunshine Coast Hinterland Writers Festival. It's not like you've been sitting around just waiting for
and I was at Rottnest last week for Holly Craig's Writers Retreat.
Right, yeah.
And I value those things, as you know, too. Like, I know you've just been to a writers' festival not too long ago as well. Although it's fabulous, you do kind of lose. Well, I lose days of actual writing because I don't really, you can't really do it while you're at the festival or whatever. And the travel, well, for me, because we're usually going straight across the country, I think, oh yeah, I'll get a lot of time on a plane, and I end up sleeping with my mouth open on the plane instead.
There's any other way to sleep on a plane. Just
I know. Oh dear.
You've got it. It's not like you can curl up like you might in bed.
No.
Now, partly me talking about your work rate is by way of introducing our guest for this episode, because the 2 of you have each written over 20 novels. I should say, over 20 novels published.
Yeah.
You've probably written quite a bit.
Both of us have also, mostly done 2 books a year through our career. And I think we both got published around the same time too.
So I'm talking about Carly Lane. Carly is the author of she's just released her 25th book, and she sold over 600,000 copies across all editions of her novels. She lives on the beautiful mid-north coast of New South Wales, and her family has called it home for 5 generations. She also writes under KB Mowle or Mole, MOWLE, and has genres of fantasy and romantic suspense available for order on her website.
Forgot about that.
Yeah. So her latest novel is Needle in a Haystack, and I'm going to quickly read the blurb for those of you who aren't yet aware of this title. Lottie Fairchild has 2 loves, history and, well, history. She's fascinated by the legends of love and curses handed down through her family. Owner of a little antique shop in a small country town called Benalla, Lottie is on the committee that is about to launch a new festival celebrating local history, including gentleman bushranger Jack McNally. Altogether, Lottie feels happy, mostly, but when festival guest speaker Professor Damien Loxley roars into town a week early, Lottie is caught off guard. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to ask Carly about this story, and I'm going to ask you both about longevity in writing and things related to it. So I'm going to put us on pause, Rach, and I'll bring Carly in.
Awesome.
Rachel, we are very pleased. I'm speaking on your behalf. I am very pleased to welcome a guest I think you know already, and that is Carly Lane. Hello,
You
Carly.
can definitely speak on my behalf.
Lovely to see you both.
Great to see you. So, Rachel, where would you have met Carly in the past? I mean, I can take a guess.
Carly and I met at a romance. We probably met online and I'm not talking about the online that we have today. That's how long Carly and I have been writing. But I mean, probably like forums for the Romance Writers Australia, or like the e-loop that they used to have. I'm guessing we probably knew each other there first, and then we met in person at a romance writers conference. But that was a long time ago, and I think maybe I've seen you once. I don't even know, but
yeah,
social media makes it feel like you see people more than you do.
It does, doesn't it? It feels like you know everybody.
Yeah.
We have known each other for a while though.
Yes, definitely. Before both of us, actually, before I was published, definitely. I don't know whether it was before you were published. Probably you did, because you did some other stuff before your rural fiction, didn't you? So you may published that already.
Yeah, some small American press stuff. Yeah.
So yeah, but it was in the early days for both of us. Well, yeah.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, Carly, it sounds like you used to go to RWA conferences as well.
I did. I credit all my journey, I think, started there really. So I was floundering before that, and then discovered RWA and went to a couple of conferences. And yeah, I always recommend them to people when you've got writers at author talks and things, where to go, what to do. That's my first thing. Join a writers group, and particularly join romance writers because of the conferences and the networking.
Yeah, that's what I say. Even if you're not a romance writer, hey,
yeah, exactly.
Because the business and the writing craft is the same across the board, right? There's only a few things that are different between genres, and so I think often people are afraid to go to a conference that's called a romance conference because they think, oh, they have to be writing, really. Not these words straight romance, because that's not what I mean as in terms of, but I mean just romance. They have to have that's their main, thing. Whereas there's many people that write crime there, people that write general fiction. Let's face it, most books have a tiny element or a bigger element in romance. Most films do as well. But yeah, I agree. It's definitely where I credit my journey is changing and getting better as soon as I joined there. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So, Carly, you mentioned that you said you were floundering a bit before you joined the RWA. Was that floundering in terms of you were writing and just not sure what to do with it, or you weren't sure that you were writing the sorts of stories that you really wanted to keep writing?
Pretty much everything. I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't have any idea what I'm doing most of the time. But back before the internet, it was a lot harder to connect with other writers and people and learn. I mean, my very first venture, when I sort of started telling my family about it, my auntie sent me a little pamphlet thing that Harlequin Mills and Boons had sent out, like if you write away, they get it. My auntie sent me with all their guidelines and how to write a book type thing, and that was sort of where I started, because I didn't know anything else really. I couldn't get hold of any other sort of information about how you write a book or for who or whatever. So yeah, and until the internet actually picked up and started taking off, it was very hard to network and be around other people. I didn't know any other writers. I didn't really know that many readers, to be honest. Even my own family, there wasn't that many readers. So
I think it was very like when they say writing is a solitary career, I always think it doesn't feel very solitary now, because we're like, in some ways it feels like not solitary enough because there's so many interactions. But yeah, I think they're definitely referring to before all social media and stuff. Hey, I actually heard someone, because when you say, you know, it's true, like we didn't know anything then. When I started, there was authors didn't even have websites, you know, like I didn't know I couldn't see or hear any author in person to learn. But I heard someone say the other day, and I think this is true, it was on Substack, which I love, that these days we almost are getting too much information. Like, here we are doing a writing podcast, but, you know, we're always listening to writing podcasts, reading craft articles, like following other authors, and, you know, and in some ways, and reading craft books and all that. Are we getting too much information these days? Anyway, I'm just off on another tangent.
Well, also, Rachel, this is not a writing podcast. This is a personality podcast.
Yeah, true. Okay. Oh, I like that. A personality podcast. Make it sound very flat.
Well, because, you know, Carly is an eminent personality in Australian writing. So, Carly, just to stay with when you started writing, so given that you said there weren't many readers even in your family, what gave you the spark to start writing? Were you reading a lot as a child? Was there a particular writer that you loved and that inspired you?
Yeah.
I was reading a lot. I always was reading. You know, parents would find me in my room, like, come out of your room, stop reading all the time. You know, like it was a big, terrible thing. My nana was a big romance reader. She was the one with the Mills and Boon everywhere in the house. And I would, you know, sneak those and read them and do sorts of things. So I guess that way she was the influence for that. But I don't think when I was younger I was ever really thinking writing was where I was going. I was just an avid reader. And I think it was just I was not working at one stage just before having kids, and ran out of reading stuff that I really wanted to read, and I just decided I'd try and write my own. And that turned out to be a little bit more tricky than I thought, but probably about 19 years later I actually wrote something. But it was, I guess that was the spark. It was like just evolving from reading to having my own ideas and knowing what I wanted to read and couldn't actually find it at the time. But I guess that would have been the initial spark then.
Yeah. And that is a great reason to start writing, I think, when there's something that you haven't found to read, because it also suggests that you've identified a gap, right? And you can go into that gap.
Yeah.
So you are, speaking of going to that gap, you have now done it to the tune of 25 books. So Needle in a Haystack is number 25, which is just extraordinary, especially since I think you've been on about a 2-book a year pace or close to it for all that time. So I will talk specifically about this novel, actually, because it has a different structure to your previous novels, in that you have an historical narrative there, and that is around the character of Jack McNally, the bushranger. And I saw in the acknowledgements at the back, you were talking about how you'd been to Uralla and you decided that you wanted to have a story. So Uralla is a real town. So how did the spark for Needle in a Haystack begin?
I think in a way it had already been in the back of my mind for a long time. I've done quite a few of my books. I try to do a lot of different types of books within our genre type thing. I don't want to write the same story, but some of them have a historical backstory, which just usually comes by accident. Only a few of them have actually started with that in mind. And because I've done things like World War I, World War II, I've done Light Horse, just different things with different eras, I sort of always thought a bushranger era would be really cute. Like, I really wanted to do that. I had no idea how I was going to use it. And I've been Uralla, Armidale, Tamworth, that sort of area is pretty familiar to me. And I had done library talks and that there, and Uralla in particular, the mayor had said, you need to write a book, set it in Uralla. And that sort of, I guess, was sitting in the back of my mind, just waiting for an opportunity, which, when it came to thinking of something, I thought this might be it. You know, maybe I should base a story set in Uralla, and of course it would have to involve a bushranger because it's very much the culture there, sort of thing. And then it just developed around that. How would I make that work? How would I put a bushranger story in? So that sort of all came from that. And I think it was just sitting in the background waiting for its time.
Yeah, right. So given that you probably did a bit of research in order to write the bushranger part of it in particular, how do you fit in research around your writing pace?
I mean, without, dashing all that around that thing that I'm some magician that writes really fast or anything, I actually write ahead, and that's the only way I can do it. So I'm already 3 books ahead at the moment. I've got 2 already submitted before, anything else. So I need to be ahead because I don't work well under stress.
I'm so jealous because I want to have a break for a year just so I can get ahead again.
Yep.
Because I am behind constantly and it's so stressful, and I want to be able to be in your position again. Because I used to be the same. I used to write ahead too.
Yeah. I think we do it to ourselves a little bit too, don't we? Like we have this really good idea and we do it, and then it's like, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure people would be fascinated actually to learn about this writing ahead. So that suggests that this has been going on for quite a while, that like you've always therefore planned ahead. So dare I ask how far ahead you've planned now? Because you said you've written ahead, but how far have you planned ahead?
I don't plan ever. If I planned, I would be so much further ahead in like everything.
I hear you.
Life.
I feel we sound very similar, Carly.
I have no plan, and even when I'm writing, I have no plan for the book.
I don't have a plan for the book or a plan for my life. Yeah.
No, they're overrated apparently.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me because I would have thought in order to write ahead, you would be planning it. So take us through the process.
Well, I was stupid enough to have one finished early when I'd already just submitted a book, and they said, "Oh, we'll publish this one this year too," and then next year we'll do another 2. And I was like, oh no. And so I'd sort of locked myself into this 2 book a year thing without even really trying. And it was only that, yes, that panicked me into like, oh my God, I'm going to have to keep writing. So that was sort of how it became. So luckily,
kind of just on a roller coaster, are you? Like just keep, that's like a guinea pig wheel. You just keep going. If you stop.
Well, and it's been so weird because I wrote extra hard for this because I knew I was going away. I had a book that I wanted to go on to. I'd written probably, I don't know, 15,000 words of it, and it had been sitting there for a little while. And I grabbed that one out and I thought, I'm going to write this. I'm going to finish this one. And then I can really feel like I can go on holiday and not be guilty. And I did finish it in probably about 3 months, this one, because I guess I'd already started it and I kind of had an idea where it might go. So that one seemed to be a lot better flowing. And and I finished it and submitted it earlier than I thought. And then I've found for the last week or so, I've been sitting here. I didn't want to start a new one because I'm about to go away. And it's the weirdest feeling ever. I feel like every day I'm sitting there.
What should I be doing?
I know. I should be writing. This feels so bad. Like I feel so guilty. So, I don't know. But
do you read a lot? Like in those times? Do you get no? You just
I should have took advantage of that for reading. I don't. So I think everything's just been a little bit too focused on this trip actually. But it's sort of going to be for research anyway. But I haven't. And it was just so bizarre not to be doing anything writing or reading related for a change.
Yeah, wow.
Well, it would be because I would imagine to keep up the pace. So you're clearly writing one book while you're editing the previous book, because at the pace you're on, it would be impossible to actually keep them separate. So it sounds like you just constantly with words.
Yep. And sometimes multiple books, depending what I've done. Like I said, I do, and I have a lot started, which I think helps my process because. But then, having said that, sometimes when I've finished one and I plan to go to another one that's sort of been started, I will sometimes have a brand new idea and I start it from scratch, and that's fine. But I just don't like being left with that blank page thing. What am I going to write next type thing? So that's why I do have a few that I might have got an idea about when I've been writing something else. So I'll stop and write a couple of chapters of it or whatever's there. It might not even be a chapter. And then it sits there for a bit. And then, when it comes time to starting something, I'll have a look at what I've got. And I think, oh, yeah, that's right. I wanted to go on that one. Other times I've picked up things I've started and thought, what the hell was I thinking here? I don't know what to do with that. And it just gets, there sometime. That'll come to me later. So it's very much that I just like to have some of them started to go to. And occasionally it's like a second book, because I don't do a lot of second books. I don't do a lot of sequels. But sometimes I get a bit of an idea about one that I might have written, and I just sort of put a vague thing there. And if the opportunity presents itself to do another one, then I can come back and do that sort of with whatever idea I've thought. But I don't do that very often. So it's only now and again.
Wow.
So again, I'm fascinated with this process. So when you get, it sounds like when you get an idea, you just start writing it. As you said, you might write a couple of chapters. So sounds almost like ideas come to you, like the characters are there, the world's there, and you just go start writing it while it's on your mind and document it at least as much as you can at that point.
Yeah, it's usually not the whole story or anything, but it might be just, a scene of something that might develop into something later. So, yeah, I can't even think what the other ones have started as, but a lot of them have come from that sort of, I'll just write that bit there and see what happens. And then when I come back to it, sometimes it changes completely, but some of the essence of whatever it was is obviously still there for, to develop. But then a lot of them also, like I said, out of the blue, I might just get a brand new idea and I just go with that, and it's what I end up writing. But I don't like depending on that, because, that's where your whole, you start to panic and when you can't think of an idea.
A few years ago when I almost went through some sort of brain meltdown / burnout / whatever, I stopped getting ideas. I used to always get an idea halfway through a book and then they sort of stop coming. So I know it's great to have that feeling that you've got ideas. Can I just ask a quick question, Soph? I just want to ask.
Of course, yeah.
So because you're probably on, similar to us, like contracts now, like, because I think if you change, what I'm trying to say is, do your publishers, they're happy, like they'll contract you for a couple of books and they might have a general idea of what they're going to be, but if you change your mind, they're okay with that usually?
Yeah, that's usually they're as surprised as I am when it comes out, because I don't know what they're getting. It'll usually be like a 2-book or 3-book, whatever the contract is, and I think now they just I don't know, I actually think about that sometimes and think, wow, that took a bit of a leap of faith, because I don't even know what I'm writing.
25 books, like I think they can have they know you'll come up with the goods somehow.
Let's just hope. But it is a bit of a sometimes I do wonder, but it's just usually book whatever, and then I just hopefully fill in the blanks. So far so good, it's working.
It is absolutely working. I'm going to remind the audience, over 600,000 copies of your book sold, and that does not include the one that's just been released, Needle in a Haystack. So yeah, again, still fascinated with the process, because this output does suggest that, you kind of got this, I've planned this, I've planned that document. So now I'm interested in how you're actually keeping track of the stories that you start. So do you have like a big whip folder on your desktop or something like that, and you just keep them in there?
That would be far too organised. That would make sense, wouldn't it? But now,
I hear you, Carly. I hear you. We are too far gone for that. I always think, you probably have similar with like character names and stuff. I'm like, have I used that character name before? Would have been a good idea to have a spreadsheet.
Well, this actually raises an important point. The more novels you write, the harder it is to come up with character names, because you have to use so many.
And to remember if you've used it before.
When it starts feeling very easy to remember, that's when I start questioning, like, why have I come up with this name so fast?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
you never worry about plagiarizing yourself. Like sometimes I go, well, I kind of did that sort of theme, kind of, totally different. It's fine, there's only, but yeah.
That's right. Yeah, no, and that is one of my biggest things. I think that at the beginning, that was what I wanted to make sure I didn't do it. I wanted to do something different most books, because inevitably you've got to come back to some similar things, but you can still make them different stories. And
100%,
I didn't want to do them, because very much in the beginning with Rule, I think the publisher's idea of Rule was very focused, tractors, farmers, dirt, and that's sort of hats, for God's sake.
Hats. I know. Remember, we always had a girl on the front with the hat.
The hats were bane of my existence. I finally, we got rid of those, thank God. But like, that was sort of the image they wanted. But after a couple, I sort of wanted to broaden. I didn't want to just be writing the same thing. So, and I think with Rule Fiction, it's really good, because you've got such a wide scope. Like, so much stuff can happen in rural Australia that happens everywhere. It's not, it's just the setting that makes it special, and you know, the people, the characters. So you can pretty much put anything into a rural fiction, which is what I love to do.
And I think also your continued success shows that there, and Rachel, yours as well, shows that there's very much still a readership for rural romance or rural fiction. When perhaps not that long ago, people might have thought, oh, well, that's tapered off. But I look at the two of you and think, well, the audience is there.
But also, I agree with I think it's probably still there because you have to just keep it fresh, as Carly said, and just, you know, keep doing slightly different things each time while still giving people what they want in a rural. But I also think there's a bigger audience for rural romance, probably, or rural fiction, let's say, than we currently get. And I think your covers, Carly, are quite good. They've sort of moved with the times a bit.
Covers.
A bit, you know what I mean? But I do think sometimes that are covers in rural romance, I've heard people say to me, oh, they read my general fiction, or they don't even read me, but they say, oh, like, you know, the cover kind of puts me off. And yet the people that do read them eventually after that, they're like, oh, it's not exactly what, you know, I imagined. And so I think there's a lot wider readership, probably, or audience out there. But sometimes I think our covers, I understand why they're there. They're to make people who do read in the rural genre kind of know exactly what they're getting. But the genre is so kind of grounded now, and the majority of people have been writing in it for a while. So I feel like they could probably risk, you know,
I want to take you to my publisher meetings, because this is what I've been saying for such a long time. I'm like, the marketing is the brainstorm behind it all. It's what moves it. But I am agreeing. I think the stories are so much more than just the target audience. And on our covers particularly, we've managed to get the girl shrunk down ever so
I'm looking at your covers now on the screen, and I do think, as I said, yours, they have evolved.
Yes. That's through a lot of jumping up and down, though. I mean, ideally I would love to have just a landscape. I think that would be more inviting to a wider reading audience.
It always surprises people when like, I'm sure you have many men who read your books as well. Like, I get emails from men, you know, there's a couple of men who've commented on my Substack, and it's not just the rural. I can say they particularly like the rural often because it, you know, there are the country blokes who have, you know, but even my Bad Bridesmaid and Bridget, I have men emailing me and saying, so like, there could probably, our books and yours too, Sophie, I'm sure, like, would be a lot of men would actually be fine reading them, but they probably wouldn't pick them up because of the covers.
Exactly. It's one of those double-edged swords, isn't it?
It is, because you want
but I think
maybe we need 2 covers for each book.
Wouldn't that solve the problem? Or just have our name across it, because our readers would be drawn to it because of the name, and then everyone else would just pick it up because of the cover. So,
but also, if we had 2 covers, some people would buy both.
That's yes.
I know. I should be in publishing.
We should be in marketing.
Sophie, can you give me a job at Hachette?
Just quietly, not with that attitude towards cover design. No.
I know. Sophie's here as the publisher going, oh my goodness stuff.
This is why they don't leave it up to the authors.
Well, because I can tell you right now, Carly, you are very unlikely to lose your lady from your covers.
I will not give up.
But it's also, this is important to hear from authors, because you are in direct communication with a lot of your readers, and you see them at events and they're telling you things. And it is a conundrum and I think it's a conundrum tied to the fact that we're producing print artifacts, not just ebooks and audiobooks, because there's an argument there to say, well, as an experiment in audiobook and ebook, try giving it a different title and a different covers treatment, even though the covers aren't seen the way they are on the print books. Just as an experiment, do that and see what happens, because that is where you can experiment, and then make it very clear in the metadata that it is in fact the same book with a different title, just to see what happens. So I think we are in an era where experimentation should happen with things like that, particularly when there are authors like the two of you who have really well-established readerships, who can give you feedback and
plus our readers are probably going to, like, our readers do follow us on various things. They've you know, I even noticed the other day, so I haven't done a cover review for the Lucky Sisters, but I was getting links and stuff for my newsletter that's going to go out to it. And I noticed that, you know how you can tell on Amazon it's already been bought because a ranking actually comes. And I have, that was before I even mentioned it anywhere, like, you know, so obviously people who follow me on Amazon have, you know, so there's ways that our established readers in for all of us who are kind of, you know, we've been doing this for a while, we've got glued on readers, they would find us anyway and they would buy it anyway. But I totally understand for someone, you know, launching them or debuting in sort of the rural genre or the general women's fiction genre or crime genre, you know, like you definitely have to have the book so that you'll attract the right kind of readers, right?
Yeah, but I can certainly understand the frustrations too. Now, Carly, Rachel referred to the fact that she had burnout at a certain point, and I think that that's almost an inevitability with the sort of output. But I'm really interested in whether you have.
She can't have, because she still had 2 books out every year, unlike me.
What if maybe you felt yourself teetering on the precipice of, but you pulled yourself back?
I would definitely have had it if I wasn't ahead. Like I won't be able to function. If I fall behind, it will be a disaster of epic proportions. So I think it's just that I know myself really well that I don't allow it. I mean, I had a year where everything that could go wrong did go wrong, probably 2 years ago. And I came very close to, I wasn't as far ahead as I usually am. And when I looked at like when the next due date for something was, it was like, oh my God, like this is the closest I've ever been. So I think it was when I saw that and realized that I could have spiraled very badly that I sort of knew I had to sort of push myself a little bit further and just get back ahead, because when I'm ahead, I can cope. So the potential was there, and I think it's always there for something like that, because I mean, this is our career, it's our income, it's our job. There's a lot of pressure there, and if I start thinking about that, I do find myself panicking. So I try not to. I like to live in denial, much like my non-planning.
Oh, it's working for you. So I need a little bit of that.
Exactly.
It's all good.
I'm always fond of saying that writers should know their own nature. And so, and you obviously do know yours. I'm curious as to whether, given your work rate, you've ever gone quite deep into a manuscript and then thought, oh no, this is not right, I need to start again, or I need to throw out half of it, because that would also be difficult for the pace you're on.
Not so much like that, but I have written a whole book that was not actually the right genre and got turned down. So that was a little bit.
Was that the one? Did you self-publish that yourself? Did you publish it? Yeah.
So that was Accidentally Working Class. I just went into that one in the beginning thinking I want just like a really dysfunctional family. I was still thinking of rural at that stage. But the further I got into it, the more elaborate it became, and it just became this thing that was so opposite of rural fiction that there was no hiding it. And then I just sort of said to Annette, maybe we could just go, you know, women's fiction with this one. And she was just like, it was more like chick flick. It was just completely out of my normal realm. But I don't know, maybe that was my brain needing a holiday and just
I think possibly, you know, because for me, I mean, I know you've done, like, you know, as you said, you're leaning into women's fiction in some sort of the genres. You've got historical elements and all that kind of stuff. But I do find, when I'm not in meltdown mode, it's not necessarily a great thing, as we probably talked about before on here, being in multiple genres, you know, because I think sometimes people don't know what they're going to get from me. They don't know where to sit me in the marketplace, kind of thing. But at the same time, it means, like, people often ask me, what do you like better, the general women's fiction or the romance? And I'm like, well, whatever I'm not writing. And, you know, it does give me, you know, it kind of gives me a break. So I think maybe that's what you kind of needed, that maybe, and it did for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that comes with not planning, so it could go anywhere really. But and I still love that book, and it is a little bit frustrating for me that, like you just said, they didn't know where to put that, and I don't know.
Not that it's not a good book, it's that they weren't.
They didn't want me competing with myself, and I don't understand any of that stuff. So I was just like, well, I've written this book and I like it, and I'm not going to let it just sit on my computer. So I self-published that one in the end. But so that was probably the closest I've come to that particular thing happening, where I did have to rewrite a whole new book because that was the one I was going to submit, and suddenly I didn't.
Did you write 3 books that year?
Yeah, I did. And it was really crazy. So it's amazing what you can do under pressure. Don't like doing it normally. So yeah.
Again, I'm going to remind the reader that it's not just a matter of writing the books. It's also going through the editorial process on the previous book while you're writing a new one, because 100%. This is is it like a gear? Is there a conscious gear change that you have so that it's like, okay, well, I'm going to allocate this portion of the day to the editing for that book, and then I'm going to switch to writing, and this actually almost like an energy shift, or does it all kind of go in together?
It all falls apart because it's usually when you're on a roll with whatever you're writing, and it's like, this is awesome, and then you get the email, here's your editorial review. It's like, oh crap. So I usually put the book aside and I just focus on my edits, and I get them out all at once. I can't come back to it after doing other stuff. I've got to sit there and just work through it and get it done. So
same. I've always thought, okay, like particularly for copy edits, because they're a bit lighter and stuff. So editorial, like the developmental structure, I've thought, okay, I'm going to keep writing the book in the morning, and I'll do like copy edits in the afternoon/evening. But in the end, I just want to get the copy edits out. I think 2 books on my plate, actually working on it just becomes too much, and I'm just like, I'll get the edits out the way. But it is annoying having that break. I find that I often have that break also when a book comes out, because doing like touring and events and stuff. And do you do a lot of events? Or I don't.
I've only just started, really. I did scatter them now and again, but when the kids were little, I sort of, well, not little, but when they were still at home, I was pretty much sort of not in a position to go away for a week or so there. Now they've all left home. This year is my first empty nest. Well, kind of empty nest. But some have come back, but technically they're all adults and I'm an empty nester. So this year was going to be my, year of doing it. And we started a little bit last year. I did a few more than I normally do. So, but then this
I just think that actually makes it hard for me. Actually, I think that's why I'm not slowed down, but like, so as Sophie said at the beginning of this podcast, I think before you came on, I had, like you, a book out at the end of the year and a book out at the beginning of the year. And actually kind of think of it, they used to be spread out more, but the last couple of years I've had like November, and February, which I've just realized how close they are. It used to be like October and, May or something. That actually that was probably, now, see, I did myself therapy here, Sophie. I'm realizing that was kind of manageable, but having them so close together meant that I had 2 books promo sessions as well as editing and writing, and I just feel like, whoa. Because I find that when I'm doing tour for a book, and the last year it's been like 2 solid weeks at least usually, I can't write or really. I could probably do copy edits in that time or proofread. Not that I like proofreading, that will usually part that up with someone else. But I could probably do copy edits, but they never seem to come at the right time. So I think doing more and more events does take away again from writing.
They've been fun, and we haven't. I don't know if it's probably not the same with all the publishing houses, but we haven't really had a lot of like, I don't know. A lot of it was organised by ourselves, so it was very much, if you wanted to do a lot, you could. If you didn't, sort of thing, it sort of just came back from whatever. Now they were trying, I think, since last year to sort of push it a little bit more and organise a few different ones and, get them sort of happening. But really we only do, well, for me anyway, they only do one a year. One of my books really get promoted, because the December one seems to fall around Christmas. But I've sort of taken on doing them a little bit earlier and just doing them in November, and that was working out okay last year. So see what happens. And it's, again, it does cut into whatever writing time you've got. So it is a win. I'm not going to win. It's like it's like you don't know. It can be good, and other times, depending on when you're going to do it, it can be a pain. Yeah.
So you just said something interesting, which is that only one of the books that you put out a year is getting promotion effectively. The other one's coming out in December, and there's a lot that goes on in December in publishing world. Christmas books, and now we used to put Christmas books out around October, sometimes September, and then November, and hardly anything in December. But we're now finding that Christmas retail is getting later and later. So
everyone's like Carly and I don't plan them, and suddenly like a week before Christmas.
But it's also, I just want to acknowledge that the success that you've had, considering there's actually not that much promotion going on, is even more extraordinary, actually, because and it really speaks to the relationship you have with your readers.
Yeah,
they know that they can anticipate that you've got a book coming out, or they know your rhythm and they'll go to it. Now that's a very loyal readership that you've created.
Absolutely, and I think real fiction in general, our readers are just the best readers. We don't seem to have a lot of the drama that some of the other genres get with their weirdos and their stalkers and their whatever else, but we have normal, happy, lovely readers, and it's
who really get obsessed with it, and love it and love it, and they'll champion you, and
they're just the best. So I mean, and I guess we all do owe it to them that they're where we are, because they are the ones that keep pushing it, which is lovely.
So, Carly, I have a couple of questions, not necessarily related, but they've just popped into my brain while you've been talking. So the first one is, I'd like to know what you were like at school. Did you do your homework ahead as well?
Yes, I did. I used to get my homework and do it, because I would either forget or not want to do it by the end. So I would do it while I got it. Yeah, that is one thing I used to always do.
Okay, because this is, again, like knowing your own nature. I often find what we were like at school. It tells us
don't like leaving things last minute.
And then the other part is well, it is a form of homework, editing. So is there a phase of the editorial process that you prefer? So structural rewriting, copy edit, proofread?
I used to actually really love the structural edit part. Like, it was sort of like brainstorming, and and just having something else there that bounces different ideas off you. I don't have a lot of that. I've got a reader, a friend, like my friend, that will read it sometimes, and I'll just ask her things like, did it flow? Was there anything weird with the characters that did? She sort of will help me that way, but that's more of a before I send it off type thing. So I used to find that that part of the edit was good in a way that there were questions raised that made you think and go back and delve a bit deeper. And I sort of still do like that, but I think it's now, because I am working on something that's so far ahead, it's hard sometimes to stop and go back and remember the book to start with, and like, oh my God. And then, but like, once I'm into it, I do still find that I do enjoy might be a bit of a hard word, but I do like to do it. It is good for you, and it does bring the book to life a little bit better when you can sort of make it a bit meatier and stuff in places where you might not have sort of seen it yourself. So I guess that process is good. But it is very time consuming compared to the rest of the edits, really. It's the one that can take the longest.
I'm almost finished current one, so I hear.
Yeah. Oh my God. Keep going.
Carly, because you work so far ahead, does that mean, because you're just talking about going back to a story, so I'm guessing from a timing point of view that actually an editorial process for you could be on a book that you wrote over a year before, because you're so far.
Yeah.
Which is probably good, because you have that real distance from it, right?
Fun to think. Yeah, it can be. Yeah, that's right. And when these questions come up about, as the questions are in these things, it does make you sort of stop and think, oh yeah, I could go a bit deeper with that, or I could take that on a different, thread somewhere else. That is the good thing about it. It does make you sort of really, sink your teeth into your book a lot more. So it is good.
Yeah. Wow.
So a question for both of you that might be something that interests some people who are listening / watching is that, given that you've had so many books out, two of you, and some people might think, oh, how do you have so many ideas? Or is there a finite number of ideas and you're kind of working your way towards it? Carly, I'll start with you. How do you keep coming up with ideas for new books?
Don't know. I hate this question because I wish I had a really good, exciting answer, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. They just come at you. Sometimes you just, you hear a news story and you think, oh, but what if something like that had happened, or this had happened instead, or, I don't know, a television series that is about something that interests you, like a bikie gang or something, like the heart of that series. It's like, oh, but what if these characters were like this instead, or what if this was something that had happened, and that sort of sometimes takes you off on a tangent. Or I don't know, sometimes it's a career that I just think
I love that.
Really cool career. I know nothing about it, but I'm going to find out.
I like doing interesting careers, and then
just be able to sort of live a little bit out of your normal comfort zone and do things a bit different. So they come from everywhere. They really do. And I don't know where they come from.
I would give the same answer, so it was probably a bit of an unfair question. But I'm also thinking in terms of that, the ideas coming from everywhere, is that something that you always felt like when you were starting to write? Did you think, oh, I have all these ideas, I just don't know what to do with them? Or is it something that you think that the more you have written, the more likely it is that ideas just are everywhere?
Yeah, I think that might be some of it too. It just sort of, things sort of lead to other things. And sometimes when you're writing a book, there can be occasions where you think this thread, well, maybe it's just me because it's not planned, but like you start going off on a little bit of a tangent, and then you think, oh, actually, no, that won't work there, but that's a really good idea. So maybe I'll take that little thread, put it in a different book, and build something around that, because this one's got way too many things happening already, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes, I think by writing constantly, you are coming up with different things, probably unplanned.
Yeah.
So, Rach, for you, I know you like titles as a way of.
I actually wrote on here to ask Carly about her titles.
Yeah. There you go.
I don't know. They tried to pick a theme. I'm not responsible for a lot.
You've got Needle in a Haystack, and now I'm trying to think of the other
sayings. Like,
which I love. I think that's great.
They're not real. I mean, sometimes I put a list in the front of when I send it in, I just think, but then a lot of times they're not real good. I'm not great at it. But sometimes, and I think they started with a theme, and I just sort of try and add to
you
that.
go along with it. No. Well, I would say, in answer to my question, yes, probably I had like at least a quarter of my books have started with a title, and I love that when it happens. And then I just really like the title, so I think, well, similar to your newspaper article, it's like, well, what if this happened, or what if who could be the people that are in this table? And the other thing is, I'm fascinated with a few jobs, things like that. So I put interesting careers in as well, and that kind of shapes the story. But I'm thinking usually I don't think I start with a career. It's just like, I'm like, okay, I need this person to be like this, and then I'm like, okay, what interesting career can I give them? And it is like newspaper articles, things like that. And sometimes it's even just more random than that, just the thoughts you might have. Or I know once I was running in one of my running eras, and this is for my book Talk the Town, I think, and I went past this old house in the country that kind of looked really run down, and I was this line just dropped into my head, and it was she had plenty of skeletons in her closet, she could deal with a few ghosts. And so the whole book came from the line. So it's just it is sort of a magic thing. You just hope that the magic keeps happening.
And that the publishers don't think it's too weird.
yes, that is definitely. Every time I send like a possible idea, I'm thinking, this is the one that they're going to
go. Let's hope not.
You should say that the book that I've just finished, it's got a very different ending. And actually, that's what Mum said when she read it. She said, it's different. It's like, it's not good different. But I was expecting my publisher to say the same. But she liked it. But it's always that worry, isn't it? If you do something different or out there, that's like
my woo-woo stuff is always a bit of a thing, but I think they've gotten used to it now.
Every now and again, woo-woo,
but every now and again it just sneaks in. And
I've written 4 ghosts, and I think I can only sneak one in every about 4 or 5
do all the time. My Scotland one wasn't supposed to be a ghosty one, but I didn't know how to get Gran to go on the holiday with her and not have her meet a guy, because how do you take your grandmother on a holiday and still meet a guy? Like, it's a bit awkward. Gran had to be dead.
I love it.
So that's sort of how that came about. It was more convenient for the the storyline.
Whatever works.
Poor Gran.
But Carly, you also say you're hoping that your publisher doesn't think your ideas are too wacky, but it sounds like you don't present them with ideas so much as a finished manuscript and just say, well, here it is.
Also, I think that's better sometimes, right?
Yeah,
if you try and explain, if you try and explain something, like I remember years ago when I wrote The Greatest Gift, I tried to explain, well, I'm hopeless at explaining things, and I don't write a big synopsis, so I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I had quite a big an idea of what was going to happen in that book. And I said to my publisher, this is the stuff. And she's like, doesn't really sound like a Rachel Johns, novel. It was my third women's fiction, I think. And I was like, trust me, it will be. I'm writing it, so it will be. But, I think sometimes presenting just a finished thing, they can, see exactly what it is without, like, where you just give them a bit of an idea. They're not inside your head and they're not seeing it properly.
No.
As a publisher, Sophie, do you want a full book or a vague idea?
Well, because quite often things are commissioned on one or the other, and it's also, as a non-fiction publisher, I don't have that many repeat customers. So, if it's a returning author, then an idea is preferable for non-fiction, rather than a manuscript. Because readers will choose non-fiction books primarily on the subject matter. Most books, and so you want to have a discussion about the subject matter rather than someone coming in with a full manuscript, which you might then not be able to use because the subject matter is not going to work. So, Carly, at the time we're speaking to you, you are about to take off on an overseas trip. And so given the fact that it sounds like you write pretty much from the moment your eyes open to the time you go to sleep, how are you going to have a holiday? Like, are you thinking, I don't know how I'm going to manage this?
I don't know. I'm going to give it a really red hot poke. But, well, in the back of my mind, because of that Scottish book I wrote before, Take Me Home, I have had a second part of that started, which was sort of, and it's been sitting there, and every time I open it to go to keep writing it, I just think, I just want to go back and make sure I get that feel again. So I've been putting it away so I could always go back. And now that the moment's there, I still have no idea what this book's going to really be about. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I figure if I go there and just soak it all in, I'll come home with some ideas. So that was so technically I'm kind of working, but I'm not writing. So but it has been hard not writing in this last week or so. That's just been really weird.
But are you taking a laptop with you so that
no
you
could... only because I can't fit it in my suitcase.
That's great.
No, but I've got pens, I've got paper, I can do it the old-fashioned way.
But that's the thing, though. If you feel inspired, and it's not work, then, is it? Right? If you want to do it, it's just when you've got that pressure that you have to do something. That's when it is work.
It sounds to me, Kylie, that this for you is writing as a lifestyle. Essentially, this is so much a part of your nature to do this.
I actually didn't realize until now that, I don't know what I am without doing writing. It's really, really weird. I didn't realize how much it was actually part of me till I could actually take a bit of a break and think, whoa, this is what normal people do.
I think I would be like that. And I was, except now I'm doing like the podcasts. I've got 2 podcasts. And so one is a lot of reading for it. And also with the online book club and organising a retreat, I've been on the committee for RWA. So I always feel like there's always other, when I'm between books, which is very rare, like you, I'm like, how do I manage to fit the writing in? Because I'm doing all those other things but I think I know that, if I didn't have all that stuff that I have to do at the moment, I'm getting, I'd be exactly the same as you. I get if I'm not doing,
doing it. And I think you learned, I don't know, you just do it automatically. Like when I started writing, I had, a baby and I had 3 kids still at school and I was working and, you just squeezed it in 10 minutes.
You look back and think, how did I do that?
Oh, I wrote more books a year than I'm writing now,
Same, 100%.
It became like your job and I'd had all this time and now
that's exactly what happened to me too. I thought when we sold the business and the kids were all in full-time school and went to Perth and it was my full-time thing, I thought, and that's actually when my burnout kind of began, I think, because I took on too much. I took on, as well as my 2 books a year for a Harlequin at the time, I also took on writing 3 Mills and Boone I signed the contract
that's a
and I
lot.
was doing a novella because I thought, well, I've got all this extra time now, but it didn't work out like that. And then I got stressed and from there I've spiraled.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
behind.
No, that's a lot. Yeah, I know. And it is hard to find that work
balance, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
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 So speaking of, Carly, is there anything you do to switch off? Or by switch off, I don't necessarily mean, oh, you want to switch off. It's more just giving your brain a bit of rest. Is there something you do that's completely different?
Well, I've got my animals. I've got, you know, and I think that keeps me, I guess, doing something else. Like it, not gives you purpose, but they're screaming out the window that they want to be fed. The goats are carrying on like pork chops and things like that. So you've got to go out and feed, and you've got to, you know, do all this stuff. So I think if you've got sort of other stuff to do, it, you know, and then it's just the general stuff. I take a break, I'll write, and then I'll go and hang some clothes out, or I'll you know, go. But then I still get that that guilt thing, like with my daughter. She's moved home again, and it's before she went back to full-time work, she was like, you know, let's go shopping or something, and you sort of go away for the morning.
Working.
I know. Oh my goodness! But I guess now that I've got more free time, no husband, and you know, the kids are all gone, I can write whenever. So I find that sometimes if I'm feeling guilty because I've done something in the day that I probably shouldn't have been, or you know, should have been writing at, I'll just stay up and write at night. So I can still...
I'm too tired to write it now. So I feel like I make all the excuses these days.
Well, the excuses are great, aren't they? But I don't know. If I'm really feeling bad, I do find that I can still write at night. Like my whereas before I wouldn't have been doing that because I'd have to get up with kids, or I'd have to do stuff in the morning. I'd have, you know. But now I guess that's one of the better things of where I'm at the moment in life. I can sort of, you know, be quite flexible with my writing. So
that's great.
Frankly, if either one of you two would like to make excuses to take a break, I think you absolutely deserve them.
Well, I am. I'm sort of. Well, when I say I'm taking a break to anyone, though, as I said, I shouldn't. I'm going to tell my publisher before this podcast comes out. I haven't told her. But like, I'm not actually taking a break from writing. I'm taking a break from the release schedule. So like, because I want to get ahead like Carly again. And the only way I can do that is to pause like a little bit on having, you know, books out so that I can not be promoting them and not be, you know, and just get ahead again. Yeah.
I think that's I think you need to do that. Well, I don't know if everyone needs to do that. I know I would need to do that too. So
yeah. I think
now I'm questioning my life choices, I have to tell you, because I'm like, I'm not ahead. What am I doing?
You have another full-time job and 2 podcasts as well. So
we should be looking at you. What are you doing that we should be doing?
And this is really interesting, just that there is us all looking at each other going, oh, you know, why not doing what you're doing? Like, it's a reminder that we are all individuals. Sophie, I'm doing the therapy tonight, and we've all got different things on our plates, and it's not a competition, and we shouldn't be comparing ourselves with each other, because as long as it's working for us, which I think, well, it's working for you too, and I'm seeing that it's maybe not working for me, so I need to, you know, make some adaptation. I know, you know what I mean? Like, but
well, I'm more thinking when I'm listening to Carly talking about being ahead, I'm more thinking that could be interesting to experiment with. Maybe I should try.
Oh, it's definitely good. I think being ahead, if you can, like I was ahead for years, like Carly, and then that's why I feel stressed now, not being ahead and being behind. It just kind of, so if you can write 2 books this year, Sophie, and get ahead.
Just step it up to 2 and you'll be right.
Well, Carly, I think we should let you go, because we are talking to you the night before you fly country quite early. We should let you go and get some, or maybe do some last minute packing. I don't know.
Oh God, I don't want to look at that suitcase again.
Oh, you're all packed? Good. We'll have a fantastic time.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah,
congratulations.
Comes out of it.
Sorry, go on, Rachel.
Can't wait to see the book that comes from this trip.
From this,
Well, you won't see it for a couple of years because she's so far ahead that that's the way that goes. Carly, I think you're amazing. You're an absolute inspiration, and you've given readers so much joy with the 25 books. Well, it's more than 25, but 25 of this.
20,
So congratulations, and have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you.
You deserve it.
Thank you for having me. It was lovely to chat to you both.
Yeah. Thank you.
Rach, I'm thinking about my life choices now. Having
you and me both.
I'm feeling like, oh, writing ahead, what a concept. It's actually never occurred to me.
But the thing is, I mean, I think it's a great concept. And as I said, like I used to do that and I'm jealous of Carly still being ahead. But you would have to write, you know, either, I suppose you'd have to do what I'm thinking. You'd either have to write 2 books in 1 year.
Yeah.
So you'd have that year ahead and then you still
yeah.
got the book next year. Or you'd have to do what I was thinking, which you were thinking last year, is still write, but have a year of actual book coming out, book promotion. But
and then I wrote Lessons in Love at the Seaside Salon because this just to tie back to something else Carly said about it. You know, she might be looking at something and an idea drops in. So the idea for this book was sparked by one video by an American comedian called Casey Dressler, who has a series set in a salon called Hot Look Salon in the 1980s in a generic American town. And her character, Donna, who is my favorite out of all the characters Casey does, because she does all of them herself. Donna had this line where she said, "Honey, cigarette down."
Yeah, and that was
I remember thinking, there's so much, and Casey is a brilliant writer. So if you seek her comedy, you'll see like these short videos, they're so well written. And in that, because there's so much implicit in cigarette down. So it tells us it's era, and it tells us that something's about to happen. And it's you know, hairspray. So I was like that it was so evocative for me. And this is also evidence of her great.
You wrote a whole book of it.
That's right. Like it just sparked something in my brain. I was like, oh,
you know what I do think? And obviously you were in some ways, I think at that stage when that sparked, you were thinking of having a year off, right?
Well, no, I decided. I had already decided on having a year off.
There was no pressure on you. And I think sometimes that's why I'm all about making sure you refill the well. And as Carly said, she does it in different ways, but she's also ahead. So it's like less pressure. And I think that when you have the pressure, the ideas sometimes don't exactly dry up, but they don't come as easily because your brain is too busy stressing about stuff. So sometimes when you take the pressure off or you allow yourself to have a break, you don't necessarily actually even need to have that break sometimes. It's just giving yourself permission to do it and then bam.
Yeah. Well, I have a half-finished novel that I actually was doing between Duchess Hotel and the one before, which was Sunshine Gardening. And I still think about going back to it. So maybe I will.
Well, if you do that one, that'll be only doing 1.5 novels this year.
But it's actually not this sort of novel. It was a hard bake. It was actually meant to be a cozy crime.
That's right.
I think, look, now you're writing crime. I just can't do it. The field's crowded.
No, it's totally different. Your cozy crime. We haven't even written now, so you know, that's also the next stress. But no, I think you should, because that's in, like, if you did a cozy crime, you could be like, you know,
my issue was it started off well in my mind. It was going to be cozy, and then it actually got a little dark a little quickly.
Well, so that's fine. That's fine. I reckon write it, because also just have that fun. And as Carly said, like if your traditional publisher doesn't want it, there's other options to do with it. But if they do, once you've written it, you see, because that's the thing, isn't it? Like you just give them the idea that when you write it, they read it and go, oh, actually, and then you could have crime and general women's fiction out each year. Well, look, there are so many choices. Who knows? But I think at this point in time, we're going to. It's a choice. Well, I'm going to see you at the time we're recording. I'm a week off. In a week. So exciting. So that's hugely exciting for me. So thank you, listeners / viewers, for being with us. And I hope you found Carly as interesting as I did. Definitely. It was so good. Very inspiring. I think she just gets it done. You know? Absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, well, thanks for being here. We will talk to you soon. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye.